Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic.
In the next several days to a week or so, we're going to continue to see things go up. We cannot be discouraged by that because the mitigation is actually working.
The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals. I'm moving forward with vaccination requirements wherever I can.
Hi, it's Jonathan. Welcome to this bonus episode of COVID Secrets. It can be quite overwhelming to hear about the high amount of injuries and deaths that people are experiencing after getting the COVID jab. Maybe you're experiencing serious side effects yourself, or someone you love is, or maybe you got the vaccine and are worried about what might happen. We'd like to offer you some encouragement by sharing Liana Rivers' powerful healing journey with you, as well as Dr. Henry Ealy's vaccine recovery protocol that Liana used to restore her body after the injury of the COVID vaccine. During this episode, Liana talks about the horrific side effects that she experienced after getting the COVID vaccine. She describes how it started causing her body to shut down and her Hashimoto's to become dramatically worse. She goes on to share how she couldn't bear to keep it hidden any longer because she became genuinely afraid for her life. So she reached out to Dr. Ealy, who is also known as Dr. Honolay, during one of his masterclasses and started using his protocol. She shares her amazing testimony about how she experienced restoration and healing. Her story gives people hope that it is possible to experience healing with the right protocols and reverse the serious damage that the vaccine has caused to their bodies. Following Liana's testimony is Dr. Ealy, who discusses his post-inoculation healing protocol using a 14-day regimen that's helped a man recover after he was given 6 vaccines along with the COVID shot. He talks about how his patient went from extreme pain and dysfunction throughout his body to walking around and talking and just coming back to life. He has since used this very protocol to help many other people overcome severe side effects after getting the vaccine, including Liana Rivers. Liana, why don't you tell me a little bit about your journey? So I understand that you had a COVID-19 vaccine injury, and so these are being reported all around the world, and people are finding that this is kind of like a lifelong sentence of either a death sentence or a lifelong misery with permanent disability and chronic pain for the rest of their lives. And like, these are the things that are happening all around the world. It's hell on earth. I'm getting reports of suicides from people that are close friends of mine. That is completely traumatic for these poor people and all of those that are surrounding them. And you are like this beacon of hope of saying that perhaps it is possible that somebody can have a reversal of their symptoms. And so I really want to thank you for taking the time to be willing to share that so that we can hopefully save some people's lives and from suffering through the methods that you use to get better. So thank you for being here with me today, Liana.
Good thing. It wasn't, I could tell you that it definitely wasn't an easy journey. And it was pretty scary. To just know that, first off, to know that they're not really giving you the full, when they tell you that they want you to take these vaccines, and a lot of people are being mandated to do so and what have you. And when I took the vaccine, I did it. I did it because I thought that I was protecting those people around me. I didn't feel that I needed it, but I really wanted to protect the people around me, right? And so it would make them comfortable if I did that. And so that's what I did. And already having, I never thought, because I suffer with hypothyroidism, I never thought that hypothyroidism would actually be some type of pre-existing condition, because it really wasn't looked at as a pre-existing condition. And so when I took the vaccine, when I got the first shot, I started to feel I wasn't feeling really great. And so, I started to do the things that I normally do. I was exercising and taking vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. And then, but not to the extent that I did once I was injured. And then when I got the second shot, it was like, all hell broke loose. I mean, I don't even know how to say it any better than that. And
By all
I
hell
could
broke
barely,
loose, what do you mean? Like, what happened to you?
so I could barely walk. My breathing was very labored. And uh there was a lot of my but like just a bunch of joint pain like all over. Um i uh um I I um I would it was very laborious, like I said, to walk. My legs were constantly hurting. And then there was a time where like my knees would buckle, and it was really bad. It was really bad. And so I knew at that point, I knew that the only thing that had changed was the vaccine. That was the only thing that was different. I didn't have these problems beforehand. And because I had hypothyroidism, and I was already on medication for it. I remember going to my doctor. I had to do my annual physical. I had just had the vaccine maybe a week before, the second shot maybe a week before I went. And they do a full workup, a full blood workup. And my doctor asked me, she said, "Did you stop taking your medication?" And I was like, "No, I take it, I take it every day." I said, I don't know, I might have missed a day." And she said missing a day wouldn't have your numbers like this. And so, you're supposed to be, when they're looking at those, um the tests, and basically the numbers are supposed to be between, they're not supposed to go below, I think, below 4, and they're not supposed to go above 6. There's a small range that the numbers that they test are supposed to be in. And my numbers were way higher than what they were supposed to. And so basically what happened was that my body was just doing the same thing it did when I first got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And so I didn't, at first, I didn't want to say anything. I spoke to my doctor about it. I told her that I had taken the vaccination, you know, and she didn't, um, she asked me, she said, "How long ago did you take the vaccine?" And I told her, and then she didn't say anything else after that. You know, she no longer works for the place where I, go and see her now. She no longer works there. Um, but um, but uh, I told her that I thought it was the vaccine, and she didn't comment either way. I guess because she couldn't.
Yeah, well, the fact
And
that you didn't comment either way sometimes is telling. Like they
right,
can't say something. It's look,
right,
there's good
exactly,
people that's kind of their response where they're good people. They're
right,
not trying to lie to you and pacify you, but they just silent and they're just at war in
right.
themselves. I mean, this is just
Hmm.
plain as day for so many people, especially the healthcare workers. They're seeing people have
Right.
reactions immediately. I know people that have had reactions within 3 minutes of having the shot, having heart attacks. But then some of the people,
Wow.
they're not good people, because what they're saying to them is, this is not the vaccine. Why are they saying that? They don't
Right.
have character that allows them to say, let me investigate this, I need to find out more, versus I'm going to try to
Right.
assure you and absolve myself of blame. No, absolutely not.
Right.
So
I do remember her saying something about, when I told her that she said, did you contact the people from SARS? Did you let them know that, that this is happening? And I was like, no, because I didn't really know, no one, I didn't know that this was something that I should do. Um, anyway, I was in class. I was in a master class with Dr. Hanley, and And I just couldn't like not say anything any longer. I really became afraid. I was afraid because I didn't want to die. And I felt like my body felt like it was shutting down. And so I spoke to him, and he put me on uh, uh, a regimen. And it was supplements, and I can't remember. I can't tell you all of them, you know, right now, but it was pretty intense. And so I fasted for 3 days, and it was nothing but water. It was a water fast. It was a 3-day fast, and then we did the regimen again. And I must have done that for about maybe, I would say I did that for maybe 8 weeks. Um, it was in 2-week increments, so it was about maybe maybe 2.5 months. Um, and during that time, I was also doing a detox. So it was really, after that, I started feeling better. I started having the energy to get up and exercise again and do the things that I needed to do. And then I had to really cut back on a lot of the nutrients that I was taking, because some of them are fat soluble, and then they could cause toxicity in the body as well if you're taking too much of them. But I was definitely under his care, and and he was asking me how am I feeling, and so we would go through the regimen again, and yeah, so now I'm great. Like, I can't even begin to tell you, um, I'm great, but it was, it was definitely a journey, and it wasn't an easy one, but but it's nice to know that there is a cut, that there is a chance to come back from that. So I'm not too concerned about the long term effect. I do believe that whatever was, whatever that RNA spike protein was doing in the body, right? That there was a supplement that he gave me that shut it down. So it stopped reproducing, and then the body was able to start healing itself. But there was I was tired. I rested a lot. Um, I made sure I sweat a lot, took a lot of salt baths, just really doing the things that I know that I needed, like, I understand that he can give me direction, but the healing was really something that I had to do myself.
So you took ownership, did you?
Definitely.
That's a very responsible and noble attitude. If it's to be, it's up to me, and I am willing to take responsibility, and I'm not going to keep deferring blame on people like, oh, those terrible companies and they injured me and now they're not going to help me and they don't have liability. Yeah, that's an important conversation. People need to know that. But for someone that's injured, it's not the conversation that needs to go through your head all the time. And hence why the Bible, I think, talks a lot about forgiveness, because it takes people out of that state and gets them focusing on their own state, the things they can control. And look,
Right.
You could be sitting in some people, it's no fault of their own, but you could be in a worse health state right now and be harping on Big Pharma and saying, look at what Big Pharma did to me. But you're sitting in a whole different situation because you're focused on yourself, and now your testimony is even greater because you're saying, look at what natural medicine can do, look at what God can do, look at what the body can do.
Yes.
Good for you. Hi, it's Jonathan. Thanks for tuning in to this bonus episode. Look, this is just a really quick message to let you know that our program is available at a big discount and with all the free gifts and bonuses. Hundreds of dollars worth of free gifts available to you right now when you take action. Things that are super valuable, the transcripts, the extended full-length interviews, special reports from our doctors, and that it's specifically designed to help you, whether it's effective treatment protocols, whether it's vaccine injury reversal protocols, whether it's understanding the dangers of the vaccines and having a guide to help you advocate to your friends and family, whether it's how to file a religious exemption. These are all types of the bonuses and gifts that we have inside of the program that's available to you right now, and you can take advantage of it here by simply clicking the buttons or the banner here on this page. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.
So I took, did the regimen, and then 3 days did the water fast, nothing but water, and it was clean water. You want to use clean water. You want to make sure that you're using clean water. If you can find, so where I live, they actually have natural springs. So to actually find a natural spring where you can get some really clean water, and just do that. And so, doing that put the body in autophagy, and that helped a whole lot. And so I would start to feel better every time I did the 3-day water fast. I would start to feel better, but once I started reintroducing food and stuff into my diet again, it would just, the body still needed time. So more nutrients, and eating clean food. And then after another 11 days of that, 3-day water fast. And so I did that quite a few times.
Oh, really? So you went 11 days of nutrient immune priming, let's call it immune priming, where you're taking these supplements, this is the Dr. Ely's protocol, and then you did 3 days. So you did the 11 days first, and then you did 3 days of water fasting, and then you went back to 11 days of nutrient immune priming.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And then you went back again on the 3-day water fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you went back again into the 11 days, and then you went back to the 3-day water fast. How many times did that go?
I must have done that. I think I did that almost about 4 times. And then, I did that 4 times. And then during that, and then after the 4th time, I did he does a detox cleanse. And so I actually participated in the detox cleanse. So doing the detox cleanse was really great, because basically what that was that it took a lot of those heavy metals that I may not have been able to get rid of, because, he uses bentonite clay. And the bentonite clay and the charcoal, and it pulls a lot of those heavy metals out. It pulls that stuff out, the toxins and things out of the body, and then you extinguish it. So that I did that. And then after that, I really started to feel better. So I would still do the regimen, but not as much. Like I would still make sure that there was still some nutrients that I needed to take. And what I found even after that was, not only did it help me get to a place where I was no longer suffering from the injury, but it also helped me to work on my hypothyroidism, so that it's not as debilitating as it can be. Because a lot of times, people who suffer with hypothyroidism, really, just it's hard for them to generate energy. And that's what we need. I mean, the body needs energy in order to do what it needs to do.
So hold on, Liana, are you telling me that your health is now better than what it was before the injury?
Yeah, I think so.
And you're judging that based on the way that you feel and your markers, for example, with your underactive thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis that you'd had before the vaccine injury, and you're saying that your symptoms and your markers are better right now than they were even before you had the injury. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then now, having had this transformation, Liana, how do you feel? How do you feel about that, having experienced that?
I feel great. When it first happened, I was there was this real cloud of sadness over me, right? I felt like I betrayed my God. Like I betrayed God. because this was not something that he wanted me to do. Um, but as I started going through what I was going through and I started to heal and things started to happen, I understood that no matter what happens, right, because God loves me so much, that he's going to work it out for my good. And he did, and that was really, that was my biggest takeaway from this whole experience, and so again, it's not for me to keep to myself. That's why I agreed to do the interview. It's not for me to keep to myself. You know, um, they say I have absolutely nothing to lose.
Wow, that's beautiful, Liana. And
Hmm?
such a contrast in the way your health was, and that's a very profound statement to say that you felt you betrayed God. I mean, the stories in the Bible of betrayal would be, Judas betraying Christ and Peter denying Christ, but it was a betrayal of sorts. It was denying
Right.
Christ, but it was the sting was that Peter really felt like, oh, there's no way I can come back from this because I've really like left my God. I've
Right.
forsaken
I denied.
God,
Right. He
and
denied it.
I
Yeah.
should be forsaken. So it's like a mirror saying, if I've cast off God, then God will cast off me, and so this is a really profound point that you made, that you chose to believe that God would forgive you and that he loved you and he could make it work for your good. That's a tremendous perspective to have versus, I made a mistake, I'm to be punished for it, there is no way out of this, God will not forgive. There's a big contrast between those two perspectives. What was it for you? You kind of mentioned it, but
Well,
what was the image of God that you had that kind of guided you in a way?
I I never thought that, and I guess there was some time in my life when I thought that, that God could, that I've done things that God could never forgive, that that he would cast me aside. But what I realized is that the more I got to know who God was and who he is in my life, the more I understood, about love and forgiveness and how that really plays a very important role in not just my spiritual health, but in my physical health. And so I've always been one to believe that you just can't, the body mind spirit connection is something that you can't separate. It has to work together. It's always going to work together. And um and so when I took the vaccine, I was very, very, there was a lot of doubt and fear, and I really didn't want to, right? But I wanted the people who were close to me to feel safe, right? And so I said, okay, I'll go ahead, I'll take it, because they took it. They were like, yeah, no, nothing happened to us, and of course, I'm talking to people now, and you're hearing things like, I don't know what's wrong. I have these new things happening, and you can say it might be the vaccine, it might be that. And they're like, no, 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 it can't be, because I was fine. Well, you know, it's not, you don't really know. None of us really know. Um, However, when I took it and then I got sick, I felt like that's the only thing. I never thought that God left me. Right. I just felt like I betrayed him. So, like I betrayed him by doing that to myself. And I didn't know if I'd be able to come back from that,
What was that
but
feeling? What was that
even
feeling
during
like for you, Liana? What was that feeling like?
Um, it was it was almost like all the things I felt like all the things that I had done were finally catching up to me. That it was almost that kind of feeling, like this is, so this is the punishment for all the things that I've ever done, the hurt and the way my body was hurting, and you know and it's almost like, how can I put it? It's almost like I could identify with Job. I could identify with Job, like, and the only difference was that I knew that there were things that I had done in my past that I may have, that I may had to be held accountable for. But at this point, um, I had already done so much as far as growing and making amends and repenting, and I've done so much. And so when you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, I've done all of this, and now, because of this one thing that I've done, right? All that all the sins that I've ever done are now going to be put on the table, and now I'm going to be judged. And I felt that way, but when 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 I finally surrendered and say, okay, let me talk to Dr. Arnold. Let me talk to him and let him know what I did. Um, and and it was difficult and it was painful because there was a lot of, because of my beliefs and because of how I feel, um, there was a lot of shame surrounding it. And so and so and so once I finally told the doctor that I took the vaccine, and that I just, these things are happening to me and I don't know what to do, and that's when he was like, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you, but you don't have to worry about it. You're gonna be okay. And it was just that small reassurance. And and I'm a firm believer that God will use his creation to speak to me. So Dr. Hanley giving me that sense of it's gonna be okay, was God speaking to me through his voice, being able to sit in prayer and meditation and pray even when I was hurting, and then having those 3 days of reprieve when I did the water fast, just let me know that, okay, God is still here. He's still able to heal. He's still, all the stuff that he said he can do, he's doing. And so that's kind of where I was at.
That's
I hope I
beautiful.
answered that right.
No, well, I mean, it's so right, and it's so helpful. Like, and we kind of are going between some different questions and points and aspects of the journey. I'll come back to the health things. I'll conclude the spiritual aspect. The reason why I delve into this is because there are actually studies that show the difference in the image that you have of God and how it affects your immune system. The studies were particularly done with HIV/AIDS patients, and it did show that those that believed in a benevolent God had the highest T cell count, far higher than that of certainly of that of the Christian that believed in a vengeful God, who actually had a worse off position than an atheist in this particular study done under a researcher, Andrew Bell, I remember the name to be of the researcher. So highest T cell count was of those that had a benevolent picture of God, which means forgiving and merciful, and not imputing trespasses, meaning to not heap punishments upon his children, much like a loving parent would give the child grace to bear with the things that they have done, but not to impose a consequence upon them to artificially slay, and harm and crush the spirits, or to condemn and to damn. Like, those are just foreign concepts to this concept of a benevolent God, which I believe the Bible teaches, and the reason why the revolution of of Jesus, what that did and how that rippled through Christian history. And I think that people need to think about that. People think that religion is just the only place where they'll find judgment. You'll go and find plenty of judgment in the world. People are starting to realize that the world at large will give you a heck of a load of judgment, and that there's no coming back from certain things. Cancel culture reveals some of that, where it's like, hey, we don't. Forgiveness is not one of the words in our vocabulary. It's not in our dictionary. We're not giving it to you. Not in a public domain, in a social setting, nor are we doing it in an emotional sense. So just think about the burdens that people carry. We don't, as a society, believe in forgiveness. We don't understand it. And it's crippling, and it harms us, it hurts us, it eats our own soul. And so there's this beautiful image of what does the healing journey look like? What is the beliefs that underpin all of our actions? And in people's hearts and their minds, our minds have an image of God that actually prompts us and directs us, and that can be detrimentally or positively, and can completely lift us out of the darkness and bring us into healing. And that's why, of the cases I've documented, I have documented personally hundreds of cases of people that have had faith as part of their protocol regimen. And not just any faith, it's about a faith it's a belief and trust in your Heavenly Father. It's the difference between saying my God and my Father is, one is a recognizing position authority, the other one is saying I accept you as as someone that cares about me in that role of authority. So anyway, there's so much there, but Liana, I want to just so I appreciate you sharing that. I think that it's a beautiful aspect of your faith, and there you are, like you're getting ready to sing in the choir tonight, or not in the choir, for the worship team.
It's a worship team, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Praising God, and bless you for that, and what a great community and thing to be doing, and see these are the kinds of meanings and purposes that people have. And again, like, you know, you might, person listening might not have special talents, so they're not going to be singing at church. That's fine, but what about singing? You know, the best songs that you ever sing, Liana, are the ones you sing privately, because that's you see what I mean. And then you do what you do privately, you can do it publicly if there's settings for that. But you know, people have the opportunities to expand and do all kinds of things to bless others. Liana, tell me your symptoms again. What were they? You mentioned Hashimoto's. I believe that Dr. Ely, Dr. Honolay told me about your case months ago, probably about maybe 7 months ago.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell around maybe July or August of last year?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Because I remember all the details of the case. You mentioned that this person had Hashimoto's previously, so you ticked the box on that. But Hashimoto's is pretty common, so I'm not sure yet. So then the other one would be that you had pain all over your body, and then the emotional state. Was that part of it, where you had issues with your emotional state and heart fluttering, and you thought you might have myocarditis? Was that you, or was that somebody else?
I don't. Well, because it was hard. It was hard to breathe. So it was like my heart would do stuff, and so I knew that.
This was you then. That was you. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so go ahead. So, just list me through all those symptoms again. So, and go into detail. Like, tell me about the issue and the sensation. Did you have any tests? Did you get tests for myocarditis, or you didn't get that far, or what happened there?
No, I didn't get any tests. I just knew that because I already suffered with Hashimoto's, and my numbers were crazy off the charts.
So after you took the shot, your numbers for Hashimoto's were dramatically worse.
Yes.
Do you remember what the numbers were before the shot and then after the shot?
So after the shot, my numbers were somewhere like in the 20s, and they're not supposed to be. Wow. So,
okay.
I
before the shot, what was it before the shot?
My numbers before the shot were within range, and that's with the medication, and of
Within
course
range
I would
is what?
exercise and
Like,
stuff.
what's within range?
Huh?
What's within range?
Within range, so it's not supposed to be below. I'm not sure, and I know it's not supposed to be below. I think 4, or it's not supposed to be below 5, and it's not supposed to be higher than, I think, 6. So there's a small range that it's supposed to be. If you go below that, then you're in hyperthyroidism. If you go above that, then you're in hypothyroidism.
Hyper, yeah,
And
exactly. Overactive. So you're saying you
right,
had
so right, so
you had
so the
overactive
higher the
thyroid?
numbers, right? So it actually works opposite. So the higher the numbers, the more hypo you are. The lower the numbers, the more hyper you are. So, right. So you're really trying to stay within those, you're supposed to stay within those numbers. And and so so I was always making sure that I was exercising and doing the things that I need to do. Um but after the shot, it was like I couldn't, my body just wouldn't recover, and then it got to the point where I just couldn't. It was hard. It was getting harder and harder to walk, harder and like my wrist would hurt and my fingers would hurt, and and it wasn't really anything more that I was doing that I did before. Um and it really, I could no longer exercise after a while. And just walking up the stairs was a chore. And so I knew something was definitely wrong. I knew something was definitely wrong. And then, then it was where my, like I would have problems catching my breath. So so again, and I knew how that felt before, um when when I first was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. They thought I had a heart arrhythmia, and it was the cardiologist that actually found and said, nope, it's hypothyroidism, and that it's not her heart, it's a thyroid. um and so, so of course it took a long time for the levels to stabilize. And so my levels have been stable for a very long time. And so after I took the shots, things just really got out of whack. And so it was once I started on the regimen again, once I started on the regimen, on the nutrient regimen that Dr. Henley put me on. I started, I started to feel, I wasn't feeling better right away. It took a while. But after that first 11 days, and then I did the 3-day fast, the 3-day water fast, I started to feel better. Um, and, um, and so that's really what happened. I started to feel a whole lot better. And not only did I start to feel a whole lot better, but it gave me the incentive to continue with the regimen, because now I knew it was working. I knew something was working. I knew it was working.
Did you just
And
mention the issue
and
that
yeah.
you? Sorry. Continue what you're saying. You knew
Mhm.
the regiment was working.
Yeah, it was definitely working. So I was really, really excited about that. So I started to do it. I did another 11 days, and then the 3-day water fast. And so as I started to do that, I started to feel better. And each week, we would meet, and he would ask me how I'm doing. And um, but there was something. He had me, on high levels of iodine and vitamin D and vitamin C with quercetin, serapeptase. What else was there? Um, uh, liposomal glutathione, I think it is. Um, and there were some other things that he had me taking. I think that I'm not sure if that was everything. Um, but I was very surprised how how much better I started to feel. Um, with that, with those those specific vitamins and minerals, I was very surprised, and because I some of them I would have never thought to take them myself. The iodine maybe, but never at the levels that he had me taking them. I wouldn't have done that, and I don't think a doctor would have recommended that. So so it just lets me know that that a lot of times, um, they want to prescribe medication for certain things, but we really, half the time we don't need it. We just need to do something naturally. We need to let the body naturally heal itself. If we make some changes, that can make a huge difference.
So you had an underactive thyroid with Hashimoto's, but you were still taking these high doses of iodine. Do you remember how many drops you were taking or what it was?
So it was in a capsule, and it was 10,000 milligrams or 10,000 units. I can't remember. I can go look if you want me to.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I'll let you and Dr. Ely talk about that tonight when you guys get back on together, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, well that's fantastic. You mentioned the heart issue. Did you bring that up just then, or did I miss that when you brought up the heart condition, or the suspicion that you had of some irregular activity with your heart? What was that?
This was the first time. This was actually the first time that I mentioned it to you. But yeah, that was when the very first time I got diagnosed. They thought it was my heart. The doctor, my primary had sent me to the cardiologist because she kept saying that my heart, that she thought it was a murmur. She wasn't sure.
And that was is this after
my heart was doing.
Was this after the shot? Was that after the shot?
No. This was no. This was when I was first diagnosed years ago with hypothyroidism. So that's how they found out I had hypo. Right. That's how they found out.
And did you say you noticed anything in regard to your heart after the shot? Did you mention that?
Yes. Yeah. So that was one of the things. That was one of the things that was bothering me because I couldn't catch my breath, and then my heart would do this fluttering, and it was weird. So I was like, whoa. And I think it was then that I finally said, okay, I gotta say something because I don't want to die. So that's basically what it was. I was like, so you cannot say anything, right? And possibly die, or you can say something and live. So I chose the latter.
Yeah, got it. Now, final question would be diet. What did you do with your diet? What were you eating?
So during that time, I was I did a lot of alkalizing foods. So and things that I didn't know then, things that I didn't know even at that time, not that I know now, could have helped me even more. But hindsight is 2020. So I found out
Like
that
what would you have included in now that you know? What would your diet be like now that you know?
So now that I know, I would make sure that whenever I am choosing cruciferous vegetables, that I actually heat them, because there are I think they're called
Goitrogens.
goitrogen. Yes, and so they actually inhibit the body from absorbing iodine. So of course I need that, right? So that's something that it's important to me because
Is that from
of
Dr.
my
Henry Ely,
hypothyroidism.
or is that just from your own discovery?
That's actually from the work that I do at EHI.
Yeah.
So
No, and I think there's other ways around
through
that,
my
but I
study.
get your point. Like, because I know that I've seen people reverse Hashimoto's, or I know of people reversing Hashimoto's on high cruciferous vegetables that are diets that are raw. So I think that there's, but I understand what you're talking about the issue with goitrogens and cruciferous vegetables understood to be high in these, and so therefore, but yeah, so it's a need for further exploration. But but dietary wise, what were you what were you eating when you're on your protocol? What was the diet?
So while I was on my protocol, I did a lot of juicing, vegetable juices. I would take the pulp and I would make stuff out of it, like like cookies and muffins and things like that. I made sure that I had a lot of high fiber. I ate a lot of high fiber foods. Um, I didn't. I still ate. I still ate meat and things like that. And let's see, what else was I eating during that time? Um, I wasn't doing a lot of. I know that I wasn't doing a lot of root vegetables. So I wasn't doing a lot of, sweet potato, but I did start eating more squash. Um, yeah, more squash, like especially the butternut, and I would roast it and stuff like that. So I started doing a lot more of that. And
Any reason why you weren't doing the root vegetables?
I don't know. I just wasn't. They weren't something that I was craving. So it was, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, no. Well,
So
I think that you've covered so much. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Liana.
mhm. Oh, sure, sure,
What would be your
Jonathan.
message to somebody else that's injured right now from the COVID-19 vaccine? What would you say to them right now?
I would definitely tell them that there's hope. But you really have to. You can't. First of all, you have to forgive yourself for taking the vaccine. You trusted people, and they they believe that they're doing the right thing. So you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive them, right? And then you have to really start embracing the whole aspect of loving yourself again, loving yourself, knowing that there is a God in the universe that loves you, that cares about you, right? And that knows that healing can happen. But if you don't believe it, um, then your body won't believe it either. You really have to know that there is healing. You can heal. You can heal.
Now, I'm going to tell you, 15,386 deaths with an experimental product in a 10-month time span has never happened before. That's already surreal. That's already enough to stop the whole program. We've never allowed a medical product to be involved in that many deaths, and certainly not 5,178 deaths within 48 hours of inoculation. We've never allowed that to happen. But now imagine that there are 5,178 deaths within 2 days of getting the shot. And now multiply that by 5. That means that there's over 25,000 people have died within 2 days of getting the shot. And the reason that's an important thing is because people often say, well, correlation doesn't equal causation. Well, what would you call it if somebody died within 48 hours of getting that shot? They were otherwise healthy before and then they died. And I got a story about that in a second too. So I got the opportunity to work with someone who was showing extreme signs of vaccine injury post-inoculation. I told this story on my radio show 2 weeks ago, or it might have been even just last week. I don't remember. But this story moved me because the person was not only administered an experimental COVID inoculation, they were also, Jonathan, administered, I think it was 6 other inoculations simultaneously. That the pharmacist, and this is exactly why a pharmacist should not be allowed to administer inoculations. The pharmacist felt that it was okay to give this man 6 shots. He's totally healthy, not on any medication. It's only on one medication, and not for any kind of metabolic issues. They felt that it was okay to give him 6 shots in a single day. 6. It's unconscionable. How in the world could you? There's been no clinical trials on that many shots, and certainly there's definitely been no clinical trials on co-administration of the experimental COVID biologics with any other vaccine. There's been no studies on this. But because the CDC has changed their stance and says it's okay, because we know we're the vaccine experts, we know so much, it's okay. We have people around the country doing this, and they're about to do this in mass with the co-administration of the flu vaccine coming up starting probably in October if it hasn't already begun, right? This is wrong. You know, we need data before we can make those kind of statements. And I think that's why you had the committee for the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, the ACIP. I think that's why they all, by and large, I think 84% of them voted against the booster. And it didn't matter because the next day the CDC overruled them and said, yeah, we're going to do the booster anyway, right? Come on. This is insanity. This is how people get hurt. Do we care? Do we have such little care and such little compassion for people that we're willing to charge forward and use people as cattle? This is ridiculous at this point. So I got to work with this person, of course, and I'm not saying this because I want to highlight that they got the experimental COVID inoculation and say that that's the cause. It's all of it together that's a problem. The entire thing is messed up. So what we did, though, with this person was we said, you know what, because he's fading, his nervous system is crashing, his balance is gone, he's fallen down a number of times, he's got muscle aches, he's got extreme fever, he's shaking. He's looking like he's in a really bad way, you know. And so I'm like, you come sometimes up into these cases as a doctor and you're like, I don't know what to do. And I told the family that I don't know what to do, but I can draw on some of the empirical evidence and we can see what happens. So the empirical evidence that I drew on was from the Salk Institute, University of California, San Diego study. And I said, let's use that. The other information that I drew on, the empirical evidence I drew on, was all of the wonderful research that has been published on autophagy, the ability of the body to self-heal based upon fasting. So I said, this is such an extreme circumstance. I don't know if this is going to work. Family, again, does not want him going into the hospital under any circumstances. And I said, look, I can't guarantee that, but let's see what we can do. I'm going to watch him like a hawk, So we initiated a 3-day water fast, again, educational purposes only. We initiated a 3-day water fast under supervision, intense supervision. But the thing that was unique about this water fast is instead of it just being water only, we used water with the key nutrients. We could use these nutrients, L-arginine, serrapeptase, and glutathione. We could use them because they were 0 calories, so they weren't going to turn off autophagy. That's when your body's in fasting mode, your body's in self-healing mode when it's hungry. That's the key sign that people have to be hungry, right? You need to let yourself, I think in this day and age, be hungry every day. You need to feel hunger before you eat the next day, and that's where something like intermittent fasting as a lifestyle practice can be so effective. We actually did a whole show on this on my radio show as well. So anybody that wants that, you can go to the America Out Loud platform, and Jonathan, I'll send you a link over so people can go and listen to these broadcasts as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I can. I'll pull it up while we're chatting here.
Okay, so it's going to be under. If you click on America Out Loud, and then you bring up, I can bring it up on screen. Let me help out here too. I'm like telling you how to. It's like giving somebody directions now. They're like, dude, I got ways I can get around. Outloud.com. So you go to AmericaOutloud.com. I don't know if Ekosha is going to let me see it, Don't you love this? This is in real time. You can see how something that should pop right up, them kind of trying to track and see where people are coming from. Okay. So if you go there and you can either go to shows and go to Energetic Health Radio, or you can go to our team and you can see me. I'm right there, Dr. Henry Ely. And when you click on that, it'll take you to everything. It'll take you to all of our recent podcasts. So here's that post-vaccine injury case study. and I'll talk about who Simone Scott is in a second. You can see also on here some occasionally I have a column that I've written, the empirical evidence for preventative strategies, and so it takes you to everything on there. So if you just go to my name on America Out Loud, it'll take you to all the podcasts, and you can go through that and read everything. So
thank you, kind sir.
Yeah, for sure. So when we're looking at the post-inoculation injury with this case, what we did was the 3-day water fasting with nutrients. So we took nutrients that wouldn't turn off his autophagic response, and it was nothing short of miraculous, in my opinion. We had a guy that was fading fast go from fading fast and really, there's times clinically where you're working with a patient where you're like, I'm uncertain of the outcome here. To go from that sense of I'm very uncertain about the outcome, I don't know if we're going to have to call an ambulance and put him on it and see if somebody over there can do something, although I don't know what they would do. They might send him home, based upon previous experiences, God knows. So what I ended up doing, to see the transformation in just 3 days, to him go from stumbling around, falling, lot of pain, tremendous pain, sweating, muscle aches, body aches, his whole spine, he said, just felt like it was on fire. To go from that experience to 3 days later of just using water and key nutrients to him walking around and talking and and feeling and showing that he's coming back to life, like he's recovering. He wasn't recovered fully in 3 days, but he was recovering, and it was very obvious. And then what we did was we followed it up with 11 days of nutrient therapy and good organic plant-based nutrition. And I thought we were going to have to do a second cycle of fasting, and we didn't. He was fully recovered from a very intense and very, in my opinion, life-threatening adverse event. He was fully recovered, at least from to the point where we can say there's no additional effects of the post-inoculation injury. By the end of the 14 days, he was done. So it's something definitely to discuss with your medical professionals. In theory, I think right now that autophagy is that proverbial off switch for the people who've received the experimental COVID inoculations. But I want to be clear that there's no peer-reviewed studies to substantiate that at this time that I've seen out there. So it's really just working off of a theory right now, but it's a theory that we've seen play out clinically, and I've seen this now play out with 3 cases that I've worked with this process of water fasting with nutrients followed by 11 days of immune priming, so that there's a complete 14-day regimen. I have had one person that I've been working with, consulting with, who did 2 14-day cycles. So a cycle would be 3 days of fasting, 11 days of nutrients plus organic plant-based nutrition. She did 2 of them. And she said she's 97, 98% recovered. She just said there's a couple little small things, but it's just her nitpicking at that point. But she looks good, So we've seen this working with some people, and I think it's something that, again, as medical professionals, we should be discussing this kind of stuff.
Amen. Right on. That's fantastic. So it's interesting. So this woman, she did 2 cycles of the 12 days of
the 14 days, yeah.
2 cycles of the 14 days of, you call it immune priming?
Well, what it is so it'd be what we've done, and again, educational. I got to keep saying this, educational purposes, right?
And we're talking about what she did.
We're talking about she did and things like that. God, goodness, the craziness that we have. I gotta jump through hoops with my words. So first is that she did 3 days of water fasting with some nutrients, with the serrapeptase, L-arginine, glutathione only. Okay, just very minimal nutrients, but we wanted nutrients to help break down spike protein, or at least in theory to break down the spike protein. And then that's followed by 11 days of continuing those nutrients, but now you add in the immune priming nutrients with it, the vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, all that stuff. You add all that in along with the L-arginine and the serapeptase and everything, and she added all that in to it along with organic plant-based nutrition, and it's that 3 plus 11 that makes a 14-day cycle, and then she did that a second time. So she followed it up because she felt like she needed to do it a second time through, and and she, in working with her medical team where she was, because we advised on that, and her medical team supported her on it, and thank God they did, on it. But so
that's super profound. But if you could share screen again and come back here to your document, so you could break that down again and again. We
sure, right here.
But I'm just helping you feel comfortable. This is what she did. We're just going in detail with what it is that she did. We're not telling people what you should do. That's the key.
So we've seen some significant clinical success, albeit in a very small sample size. I think we want to be very objective here, using 72-hour water fasting plus fasting nutrients. So let's go see what those fasting nutrients are: L-arginine, liposomal glutathione or N-acetylcysteine, serapeptase, and liquid iodine. Those are the fasting nutrients. Okay.
And these are all over the counter. I mean, people can order all of these on Amazon, for example.
Yeah, they're readily available through multiple sites and points of service. Yeah.
And then to me, it would appear unlikely that people would get a source of this that is completely toxic and doesn't work at all. Is there certain things you would look for to avoid that?
I use medical grade products, so I'm pretty much using companies that I trust for things. That being said, I don't want to give out what those companies are. I don't want to endorse any company or anything like that. I think you look for, I think it's incumbent on every consumer now to really do their background work on companies they trust and things like that. But as far as how to vet a company for serapeptase or liquid iodine or anything like that, hopefully you wouldn't. God, how do I say this? This is something I teach students at the Energetic Health Institute on how to do. I actually have them call the company, and talk to people. And to me, one of the things, if I can't get on the phone with somebody and ask them some questions, it really makes me feel like that company, I'd have some questions about them, and be more reluctant to use them. But I think when you're at this point, for a lot of people, it would be, make sure you discuss this with your medical professional before you do anything, number one. And if you and your medical professional are in agreement and move forward with it, I would trust your medical professional to help you identify great sources for all this stuff. But I do think whenever we're talking about fasting, you want to work with people who know how to fast, and who have practiced it before, and have that medical acumen for it. Because, there can be 72 hours, in my experience, has been very, very safe. The longer fasts get more concerning. But anything could happen, and it's not a good idea to, in some of these uncharted territories that we're in, it's not a good idea to do things without supervision at all, So that'd be my thing, and that's the point we make right here, Jonathan. Do not do this without medical supervision by qualified professionals. I think that's very important for everybody, and especially people who've never really fasted before. Because there's a lot of sensations that can go on that people can misinterpret. There's a lot of sensations that people can overlook, and you really need somebody who knows what they're doing to do that. And so we're encouraging people, and this same encouragement goes out to medical professionals. If you're working with patients and you're considering this, do not attempt water fasting a patient unless clinically trained to do so. In fact, everything on this page right here on the COVIDCon site is really written for medical professionals. It's not necessarily written for people. It's definitely not written for people to enact on their own. but it's not even written in that language. It's written to like as if we're talking to medical professionals, that we want to educate medical professionals on how they can do the best job they can do for their patients based upon what we've seen clinically over the last 20 months.
And we also recognize the diversity of circumstances. I mean, there's people around the world that are starving to death. I've been involved in many situations of that nature. Do you want to just pull that up again? Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I would. Yeah, so people's accessibility to certain things, we understand all these facts, but we're just sharing information. We're sharing what these people did. We're giving all necessary disclaimers, and then we're sharing the research behind things such as fasting, and the effectiveness. And so I think that some of the aspects that people have their research ways in which they do things, like reading reviews and. Mm-hmm. There's things like this that can be very helpful, and then so using the L-arginine, which is 1,000 milligrams twice a day, and then liposomal glutathione, which is 250 milligrams per day, and serapeptase, which is 80,000 SPU, which would. I mean, is this in a 60 capsule bottle? And
it depends. Again, it depends on the company, and people should be really going. These are things that we've used clinically with the small sample size of people that we've seen effective. But people should discuss this stuff with their medical professionals and adjust accordingly. This is an idea of where people can begin. This wouldn't be something where I'd say this is how you should be dosing it and all that other stuff. I'm never going to say that, and I would never tell somebody to do that. Every situation is unique, and it's really incumbent upon medical professionals to do a great, thorough health history, understand mechanism of actions for all of these things, especially fasting, and before utilizing it, have some experience with it personally and clinically, before they do it. And I understand that may be a very small subset of doctors who have this ability, but those are the people that I would rely on. If I was a patient looking for somebody, I'd rely on somebody that knows how to fast and knows how to do that. We provided some references here. One of them's from the Walter Longo Foundation, which is Walter Longo is the research scientist out of the University of Southern California, who has done some really spectacular work on autophagy and a variety of things, neurodegenerative disease, cancer. He's shown that fasting is every bit as effective as chemotherapeutic drugs in his research, and he's gotten a lot of acclaim for it. Also included a resource.
I've actually had him in my films before.
Nice. Yeah, he seems like a really cool dude.
Yeah, and I personally I was interviewing him in the context of the hype around keto, and I actually respected a lot that he was willing to be quite different from a lot of other people in seeing the validity of a plant-based diet versus the high meat intake, keto, and I agree with him. At the time I was confused. I didn't know which was the best, and I think that he really went with the data and the long-term versus what was appearing to be a very exciting thing. But so I think
the big problem to me with all the keto stuff is one, the quality of meat people are choosing to use for it. It just seems like an evolution of the Atkins diet to me in a lot of ways. But to me, the source quality for meat is very important. I think that's not something a lot of people pay attention to who are practicing that diet. And I support people exploring whatever they want to explore, with things like that. But I get concerned about that. And I get concerned about that especially because cheap meat typically has a much higher percentage of arachidonic acid in it, and it's the arachidonic acid when mixed with saturated fats that leads to a lot of the degenerative conditions associated with meat consumption, a lot of the cardiovascular decline, a lot of the arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. It's the combination of excessive levels or high levels of arachidonic acid in conjunction with saturated fats. And those are two substances that are found typically in very high quantity in low quality confined animal feedlot operation meat. So for anybody exploring the keto diet, I would say make sure that you're adamant about your source quality of your meat. Free range, pasture raised, humanely raised, wild where possible. Meat, because those are the animal tissue that's going to have less arachidonic acid and have more nutrient density, and we have ample studies, showing all those things. It's when you're going with keto and your source food is really feedlot meat, you're setting yourself up for problems.
And I think that there's some really interesting factors as well. Historically, you look at gladiators, for example, they were plant-based, which is surprising. We know this from autopsies that have been done on the bones, the specific type of paleo autopsy, and the acuteness of their minds for that battle, as barbaric as that is, was very important. And you look at you go back to Egyptian times, and they had all the same diseases as we have, from cancer to obesity to heart disease, and the long list of those diseases. The mummies being surveyed or being studied with this same type of autopsy. So to me, it's very interesting to see that during those times they wouldn't have had, I believe, there's the low quality type of meat that we have today, but the excessive consumption of it was really the issue. And I think that was proven true with the Blue Zone studies as well, because the Blue Zone studies with 100-year-old people, it also made sense that, go back 100 years, the cattle was more natural than what we have now, but yet it was still the societies that had less meat intake that did much better, and they were intaking meat from the maximum was once or twice a week, but right. Many were once or twice a month, and then the only Blue Zone in America was actually completely vegetarian. So I think that longevity and disease resistance against disease is less to no flesh foods, but I understand that is a religion for a lot of people in the sense of to invite people in a path like that. And I think, don't make it religious and just make it about health and just make it a journey. And if you disagree with me, it's no big deal.
Right. The thing that I encourage folks that are exploring high meat diets to do is to make sure that you're getting at least 12 grams of fiber in a day somehow, because we know that that's going to help offset some of the excess arachidonic acid, saturated fat consumption, and other toxins that are associated with meat and the metabolic breakdown of meat. I think it's also, very important for people who are doing those kind of diets is to understand that plant-based diets, like we alluded to earlier, the big part of the plant's immune system are antioxidants. So there's a great deal that you're missing in terms of augmenting your body's production of antioxidants. And so the teaching concept we have at the school called layers of protection, that when your diet is meant to provide an immunological protection for you, and that's where the plant-based diet doesn't mean plant-based. We say that you have to be vegan, but it means that the majority of your meal, majority of foods that are going in your body are organic and plant-based, because when you do that, you're building a layer of protection that allows your body then to build a secondary layer of protection based upon the antioxidants that our bodies make. A lot of people don't realize that the human body makes its own antioxidants, glutathione being one of them. And then below that, we have other layers, and that's where the immune system comes in. And then below that, that's going to be where the adrenals and some really key glandular activity takes place.
It's stories like these that help us to realize that it is possible to get help and recover from the serious side effects and even near-death experiences that the COVID vaccine is causing for so many people. Our hope is that this episode helps you or anyone you know that may be going through the same thing. If there's ever been a time for us to stand together to protect one another and share the truth, it's now. To recap this episode, we shared testimonies that prove that healing and restoration after extreme injuries caused by the COVID vaccines are possible. We also heard from Dr. Ely as he shared insight into his vaccine injury protocol, which started off as a leap of faith developing into a life-saving approach. Join us for our next bonus episode as we look at natural and holistic healing protocols that are not to be missed. Did this episode bring you hope? Well, I hope it did, because this is the kind of information that helps people to realize that there are solutions and that you don't have to just sit there in a situation where you're, for example, injured by a vaccine and just believe that that's your fate and you're doomed and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just a miserable perspective. Or that you took the shot and look, it's too late. Now you just have to wait and see what happens. Don't do that. Don't wait and see what happens. Do what you need to do to get your body functioning properly. And look, God works miracles, I believe that, especially when we partner with God in the healing process and invite that healing power through actually putting the right things in our body and taking the right things out of our body, trying something like a fasting protocol, or using supplement protocols, or using detoxification methods, or all the various information that we've covered, even using ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, early treatment methods to turn off the spike protein, and all of this. But these tools are available to us, so I want you to be able to know that we're here for you. We're here for you as you turn the next corner. Everything that we know is continually evolving, so I want you to know that when you take action and own our program, you're getting access to that future content that we're putting out to help you, because as we turn the next corner and I do a question and answer session with a doctor and I invite you on the call, these are part of some of the bonus gifts that will have these things happening in any of the programs. So any program that you purchase, you have the opportunity to join us on these types of calls and bonus materials when I do a new interview on a new vaccine injury recovery protocol, and then I share it with you inside of your membership area so you can access it in that censorship-free environment. So make sure to take action while it's available. Click the buttons or the banner below and you can get started right away. Thank you so much.